Welcome, intrepid viewers. And here we are in our shared nightmare. And since we last spoke, China has been doing military exercises in warships off the coast of Australia and New Zealand with live ammunition. Now, why have they been doing that? They're testing and prodding to see if there's a US reaction. Would the Yeti even know? Of course, he doesn't care, but would he even know? No. So we're all in this together, guys. And I want to thank you all individually as this community because you guys have been brave enough and compassionate enough to support Canada's side of the story with the tariffs. And this is how we're going to get through it. Global citizens need to bond together in sanity, not insanity, insanity, and understand that what connects us is so important. And there are more of us than there are of them. In fact, there's so many more. Bernie Sanders pointed out during the week, bless him, it used to be a wealth disparity. We used to refer to the privileged 1% over and over in academic circles, in economic circles, etc., etc. The wealth disparity is so bad now that, as Bernie pointed out, three people own half the wealth of the United States, and the other 360 million have to make do with the other half. And then there's a sliding scale, of course, of who gets what. So all of this stuff comes back to wealth disparity. And the US could get away with it for generations by just saying, just work hard, it's a level playing field. You know, my grandfather didn't finish school and he became a millionaire. Why? Because there's always a handful of success stories. Okay, and the US has its share of them, but that's no longer typical. Right. So in this video, first of all, I want to look at, well, there's a whole, I don't think I'll even get through a quarter of my notes, but I want to look at the idea of what is freedom. You know, we bandy it about. Oh, we live in the free world. Well, do you, pet? You know? But first, let's have a look at what is behind this going on since the meeting with Zelensky, right? And what that is an embodiment of toxic masculinity. It was absolutely ferocious and awful in every way, but it's not an isolated incident. So you've got the Yeti interfering and allowing the Tate brothers. And it's like the worst of the worst, isn't it? So, and then of course, Musk is actually, I think, suffering from a crisis of masculinity. He's now 51, 52. Point is, he's in his 50s and he's behaving like a 14-year-old. And why should we all have to pay the price of his midlife crisis, which is what we're witnessing? 14 kids, doesn't see any of them, bar the favoured one. But let's have a look. Toxic masculinity and the global environs. Let's have a look. I mean, women's rights being dragged back 70 years. Wherever we look, there it is. Let's have a look. Toxic masculinity. Oh, here we go. Hmm. It's in the balance. This is interesting to me. As a reader, like the first card, confusion, delusion. So I can't help but connect things historically because what we do, I digress already, dear possums. When Reagan and Thatcher were in, this was the beginning of the dismantling of the working class. Now, Margaret Thatcher famously said, "There's no such thing as society." I'll just let that sink in. So, in other words, she was the Iron Maiden, and for toxic masculinity to take hold, you need the women who support that in some demented way. So she had to be tougher than all the men, right, to hold that job at the time. And she was itching for a war, and she found one in the Falklands, which is Malvinas if you're Argentinian. And so with this, we're seeing this was dismantling of the working class in the sense they got rid of manufacturing in the UK, in the US, in Australia. So working class men had traditionally been proud of their blue collar identities. No one prouder than the miners, even though the Welsh miners used to die at an age of 46 and things like that. The sheer pride in doing difficult, dirty, dangerous work, right? Whether that was industrial above ground, below ground, whatever. So when everything, all the manufacturing went offshore and we all got sucked into the $5 t-shirts, which was our consolation prize for a whole generation losing their job, we all paid the price. Because the men, how do you re-establish your identity as a man? So the rot started there. Okay, so working class men also are the backbone of MAGA. That's my point. Focus, Lena, get on with it. So now they're confused and deluded, right? They don't know how to assert that masculinity. So they can grunt and carry on, but it gets turned inwards. And as partners and fathers and uncles, what they're doing in the modern world is just poisoning the young men in their families against women. Okay, so they're suffering from a fundamental delusion because there aren't enough Tim Walses in the world. Men can be compassionate, should be compassionate. That's what protecting your family is really about, not about shooting the mythical, rival. So we haven't got enough Tim Walses. The false message, right, that they've been given. Oh, it's the Mexicans and women and wives can divorce their husbands. Oh, this isn't natural, right? That's the false message. They've been blindfolded and they haven't been able to find a path through it because what I was describing, which is under the economic label of neoliberalism, small government, said Reagan, right? Let people fend for themselves, But they've been blindfolded, and so they haven't been able to find a way out for 40 years. So here's the hardworking knight, but it's also the mercenary. So all our Western societies have been forced into this situation of worshipping the dollar. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Look at this, the two twos. They don't know what to do. It's unstable. And in evangelical communities and the right-wing white communities, it's all about othering people. So it's brown people, it's women, and so forth. So you've got to demonize the other in order to oppress them. And it's a sliding scale of oppression and repression, clearly. But they haven't found a way through. They're on rocky ground. So there's a message there with this great worshipping of the dollar. Now, I'm sorry, I've said this before, but it's an important point. You cannot say you are free if you don't have universal healthcare. I know that's a big statement, but think about it for a nanosecond. Otherwise, you're just at the mercy of your next major health event. Because even if you're insured, you've got the tension and anxiety the whole time. What if I lose my job? Or what if my insurance doesn't cover it? I can't afford the co-pays. So you're not free. Americans are not free. It's a big statement, but it's a true statement. Right? So until we revisit this and until Americans get universal health care, no one is free. Obviously, the uber rich can afford better coverage, but that just means it's like the medieval times where the peasants just die, which seems to be their game. They don't care. What about Marjorie Taylor Greene? Right? So, you know what it's like at the moment? You could spend 4 hours a night just looking at videos on, oh, I didn't think the leopard would eat my face. There's a million feel-good videos from out where we're sitting of MAGAs who have woken up. But it isn't the majority. No, they haven't woken up yet. And you had MTG saying, oh, these federal workers do nothing. They're just parasites. Someone needs to break the news. Hun, you're a federal worker. These people are... Oh. So talk about the working class voting against itself. The problem is you now have Congress, the Valley of the Hyenas, who have just passed this thing that's pretending to be a budget, but it's not really a budget. It's just a draft reconciliation document saying proudly, we are going to cut 800 billion from Medicaid. But MAGAs don't hear that. They're not sitting at home watching Congress. They're simply not. And so if you go then to your Trump's, Truth Social or whatever it is, you're not hearing that. You're hearing efficiencies. You're not hearing your Medicaid. So 71% of Americans, including probably 90% of MAGA, do not agree with it. But this is why they're saying after the election, oh, the Latinos, I didn't know he was going to do that. They don't actually listen to what the cult leader says. It's an emotional attachment. Okay, Lena, moving on. Where are we? Oh, yes. Now, the shutdown. I'm not going to look at it today, but I'll be looking at it soon. Let's look at all this. Is there a way back from the brink? Is there a way back? Now, what I think too is there's an extra big problem at the moment. Let's look at just Congress itself as people. Let's look at that. Let's look at just people. Let's look. Now, just make a note while I digress. The Yeti's appalling, excruciating behaviour has had the effect of galvanising the EU like it hasn't been galvanised for decades. And at that meeting were the heavyweight EU leaders, plus Zelensky, plus Trudeau. So Canada's global profile is rising by the hour, independent of the US. Let's have a look. Is there a way back? Is there a way back? This question is there a way back via Congress? Because I sincerely believe the way back is mass protests, but I'm just looking at Congress. In other words, will the rhinos stand up? Okay. I'm going to also use another deck. I'm doing a double spread. Oh my goodness. Oh, my very giddy aunt. Look at this. In the back rooms, they're talking with each other, and we know from the reporting from the Daily Beast, Alternet, and so many others, Raw Story, Politico, many of the GOP are talking to Democrats and reporters anonymously, but they're in the back room. Look, I shuffled while I raved on because we're living in a time of Neptune, as the astrologers would point out, Neptune and Pisces and all these things. Everyone's confused, but this is the actual GOP people. They're afraid. They're so afraid. They feel their hands are tied because they're scared of Trump and they're scared of their voters. We also know they are getting veiled and not so veiled threats not to break away. This is very emotional for them. So on this spread, I'm not seeing a significant number break away. They haven't got the personal courage and fortitude. So with this next deck, this is the predictions deck that Linda G sent me. Mwah! Thank you so much, Linda G. So let's have a look at what the prediction deck says about will a few Congress people stand up? Have they got the courage? Let's have a look what this says. Oh, love that. Oh no, you're not going to believe it. You're actually not going to believe it. Sorry, I just have to take a moment. You might have to rewind this when you're watching the video. Look at this. This is Congress people. The rescue revived, because my question was, will they do it? And I thought, oh my God, it almost looks like Mike Johnson at the age of 7, doesn't it? I mean, he's a weird one. Rescue revived. So I thought, oh, there's potential. Sinking ship. There's a handful of them, probably not more than 5 or 6, who are smart enough to recognize a sinking ship when they see one. But that's not the question. Will they stand up? I doubt it. I think they're going to sink with it. Submarine underwater. Check this out. Rockets, SpaceX. They haven't got the courage to stand up to Elon. Now, the Yeti had his first cabinet meeting the other day. Well, it's called a cabinet meeting because it's the meeting of your cabinet members, but because he only appointed absolute cretins and bullying wankers, as we would say, like himself. And he went into the meeting going, who loves Elon? If you don't love Elon, too bad, you know, we all love Elon. SpaceX. Oh, mercy, mercy. Well, doesn't look like they're going to do their jobs representing their people in a hurry. So that brings us back to you guys. The people have to save America. Okay, I think we knew this in our bones, or as the old aunties used to say, they could feel it in their waters. Oh my God. So don't forget, people, this is important. with all this legal stuff going on, and we know the courts are doing all the right things and finding them in breach of the law, but the law is too slow. None of us can endure 4 years of this. We're doing it in a very compressed time zone. Now, with popular uprisings, they tend to take a while to get going and then the momentum hits. Now, McCarthy era, lest we forget. So people were dobbing in people they worked with as communists and so forth. People lost careers, people lost families. It was horrendous. The FBI was weaponized fully as it was under Hoover, under Hoover, as well as McCarthy. So America has a history of this, and you've come through before. But the way through, let's go back. This is the big one. This is the American Revolution revisited, as all the astrologers will tell you. And you know what? You've even got a Mad King again. This is about the Mad King. Oh, he's such a barbarian, and he really is a primitive life form. Oh my God. Let's have a look. Will the protests grow? People joining together. Oh, magnificent. Oh, thank God for that. Now, we have to remember when I was just saying when I started this video, we've got to reach our common ground. There is more that connects humanity than tears it apart. Right? So, in other words, if you put the Russian grandmothers with the Ukrainian grandmothers, yeah, hello, let the babushkas loose and sort out that scenario, if you ask me. I think we're at the end of a huge patriarchal cycle. I mean, the Pope's literally on life support. We are at the end, but the end of every big historical cycle of humanity, it always gets tense, ugly, and dare I say, violent before the birth, right? Can't be born without going through pain. So this is people recognizing their common humanity. This is keeping them accountable through the legal system, but it's as well as, not instead of. So yes, keep those legal cases coming, right? The false knight turns up in every reading, the misinformation. But here we go. This is in the form, I think, of social media. It's about putting the boats out so they can come in. I think everyone has a responsibility as a caring, sentient human to find what you can do, what's your skill set, managing your own energy levels so you're not depleted in a constant state of exhaustion, so you can float boats out and also consume positive information. I don't mean that as a Pollyanna thing of, oh, only read the good bits. No, what I mean by that is there are now hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of sites of what you can do to be part of the resistance. So it's really important to be the change you want to see. Now, look at this. And this is beautiful. It gives me heart. Staying anchored and staying in the light. not caving into the darkness, staying in the light. Look at the feet. 1 foot on land, which I think is your day-to-day realities and your activism, and the foot in the water symbolizing this other energy out there, because it has to help and does help. We know that. So Canada is strengthened by seeing American voices say, we stand with you, Canada, right? And this ripples out across the world. Europe has now said explicitly, and the entire world after that debacle in the White House, Ukraine, we stand with Ukraine. That leaves only the government of the United States, China, and North Korea, right? Russia, North Korea, these are Trump's allies in crime. It's bizarre. Who would think it in their lifetime? So it's important to keep this global thing going. Climate change has been forgotten in all the day-to-day miseries and drama. You know, the sheer theatrical nature of it is exhausting. So this is saying literally use your angel wings and rise above it and be part of it from here, not from here. So this is where the action is. This is where the protests are. This is where the civil disobedience is. This is where different people in different occupations and retired people in different capacities can resist. But instead of struggling like this, let's go, no, let's do it for the higher good. Oh, I'm even moved myself. Oh my God. Now, guys, some housekeeping. So, if you haven't gone back to Erica Conversations with Cards, she interviewed me last week. That's available on her channel. And on the 6th, which is soon, it's already the 4th here, but the USA 6th, I'm on with David by the Bay. Bless David. And I think the twin, Gary. So Tarot by the Bay on the 6th, I think we're doing a live. So check out his channel for announcements. In other words, you'll see me in 2 days and I'll be on that channel. Can I also say, I'm surprised the number of people who write to me and say, oh, it's good to see you back, Lena. Where have you been? I think when you've been subscribed to a channel for a while, the notifications can go off. So make sure your notifications are on because I live for you guys. You are awesome. And we're all in this together. Okay. And so may every drag queen flourish. Oh my God, we need more of it. So random blessings, love, love, love. Bye for now. Ciao.